Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm your host, The Mighty Bjorn, and today for you I have another Community Steel video. But this is going to be kind of special because I'm going to use this video to celebrate 50 videos for Community Steel. This was actually an idea that was passed on to me from a member of my community who's a fan of Community Steel, and he suggested to celebrate 50 episodes. How about a best of compilation of Community Steel? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go over any of the fine details or stats or anything else that I would normally go through. But what I am going to do is I'm going to give you the name of the vehicle, the creator of the vehicle, and then the episode that it was featured in. You can go check them out. Although in all honesty, I just recommend going back and checking them all out because all Community Steel is good. Because the Sprocket community is awesome and can create some awesome projects. Now that being said, too, the footage, a little bit of a disclaimer about the footage. The footage is a little grainy, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's mostly because YouTube is shit. Understand that all this footage was done in either 780 or 1080. Or sorry, 720 or 1080. And for some odd reason, when it downloaded, it didn't download in the same quality that it was on YouTube. So YouTube, real quick, kiss my ass. Either ways, folks, one more thing. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, that kind of bullshit. And you know what? If you really like to, buy me a coffee. Support me on Patreon. Because trust me, this stuff keeps me up late at night, even on work nights. Either ways, let's dive into the first one. Now understand, these are not in any type of order except for the last one. I'm saving the best for last. Now this one here, this is the E12A1E Grizzly from Swift Hawk. This was featured in episode 28. And I chose this one because it's just a really awesome IFV. And actually the autocannon kind of made me snicker and chuckle a little bit when I played with it. It was a lot of fun, good mobility, stuff of that nature. Unfortunately, the tow launcher doesn't work because at the time multi-guns didn't work yet. But that's neither here nor there. Now the next one I have here is a one of a kind. This is the T90A from Dead Wolf. This is actually from episode 2 of Community Steel. So this goes over a year ago, back to when the game was still actually fairly new in its infancy. And while something like this would be easier to do now than it was then, no one else has ever sent me one, and I just think it's gorgeous. It's very well detailed for what we had to work with at that time. Now the next one I have here is the Dicker Max from Dentorum, and this is from episode 17 of Community Steel. And honestly, I don't think there's anything super special about this except for it's just a really good rendition of a Dicker Max, and that's why I chose it. I have, admittedly speaking, I have a bit of a soft spot for the Tier 6 Dicker Max from World of Tanks. It was one of my favorite tank destroyers. And that's actually why I chose this one, just because I'm a Dicker Max fan. So if you don't like that, you can fight me on it. Now the next one is the Sakharin from Sergey 00102. And this was featured in episode 39. And I chose this one because Warhammer 40K and DACA. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Just the sheer amount of guns and firepower that it has. And it's just a rolling death machine gun death blossom, if you will. I really like this one. I think it's a really good rendition of it. And honestly, of all the 40K tanks I've seen so far, I've gotten a few, not a lot of them, but a few. I want to say this was probably the best one. I don't think anyone else has come to me with something even close to looking as good as this thing does. Now the next one I have here is the T14 Assault Tank. This is from Gordon, and this was featured in episode 21 of Community Steel. This is actually a sort of heavy-ish, medium-ish assault tank that was actually designed by the United States during World War II. And this was one of my favorite tanks also in World of Tanks. It kind of crosses, I don't know, like a Sherman and a heavy tank, if you will. Like if they made a heavy Sherman, this would be it outside of the jumbo. And, you know, I really like this one. There was only 2 of these vehicles ever produced. It was produced right alongside the Excelsior, and it was meant to be a replacement for the Churchill, which never happened. But either ways, this is actually a really accurate depiction of the T-14, and that's why I picked it. It's got about the right size, about the right shape. It's got the right armor. The gun statistics are correct. The maneuverability feels correct. That's why I chose it. Just such an accurate depiction of this vehicle. Now, the next one I have here is the LMTK TTS 107 from Substep. And this was featured in episode 22 of Community Steel. And essentially, when it comes right down to it, it is a heavier armored turretless version of the KV-4. Now, with that being said, this was actually one of the really early vehicles that I showed from Substep. I think this might have been the second or third that I showed from Substep. And, like, I'm pretty sure Substep is up there with German Train when it comes to tank creations at this point, because there's so many vehicles that I have featured from Substep over the episodes of Community Steel, and I think this one of all of them is probably my most favorite one of them. Now, the next one is, well, it's a church. This is from Massey More Ultra. This was featured in episode 8 of Community Steel, actually right alongside his hot tub. And I chose this one because, well, it's a church armed with a 75 millimeter gun. So we know that if you're going to get smited by God, we know what caliber he's going to use, and that's 75 millimeter. Now, with that being said, you know, a lot of people like to brag and joke and oh, look at my cursed tank. Meanwhile, they only built a wedge with tracks and a gun. This guy built a church back when it was damn near impossible to do, too, by the way. Now, the next one I have here is the Zelo S, the 2S14 Zelo from Sergey, another one from Sergey, 00102. This was featured in episode 18 of Community Steel. And I chose this one because it's an odd vehicle that there was really only ever a prototype of. There's not really a lot of photographs out there for this vehicle. I can think of, I know it's featured in Armored Warfare. I don't know if it ever got featured in War Thunder. But essentially, when it comes right down to it, it's a BTR with an anti-tank turret, and I think it's a gnarly vehicle. I thought it was a cool vehicle, and I know why the Russians didn't produce these things, but that's pretty much why I chose it, because it's a really good rendition of a prototype that was never produced. Now, for the next one. This is not the crown winner yet, folks. This is only number 9. And this is from German Train. This was featured in episode 13, and this is Atomic Annie and the towing trucks for Atomic Annie. Once again, people like to talk about cursed tanks like they got some really rad creation or something that's completely off the wall. I give you Atomic Annie with tow trucks. Yes. Now, I'm trying to back it up here to show how it would actually be towed. Basically, you would have a truck on the front and the rear of this. They would pick it up and drive around with it. And once it got to where they wanted to deploy it, they would drop it down, and it would unfold legs and stuff like that and level out. And yeah, Atomic Annie, really cool. Could fire nuclear shells. This is another one I've not seen anyone attempt this. German Train's the only one I've seen attempt it, and once again, this was done back when stuff like this was really hard to do. It would still be hard to do now. Okay, so here we go. The final winner. The blue ribbon winner, if you will. right, so here we go. This is the blue ribbon winner, if you will, and this is the Terminator tank. And I chose this one because every time I hear somebody talking about cursed tanks, I point at them and go watch this episode of Community Steel, then come back to me about cursed tanks. This is the Terminator tank from German Train, and this was featured in episode 14 of Community Steel. This was actually the episode opener. So of all the vehicles here, there was only one that was an episode opener, and that's this one. And like I said, every time I think of weird and interesting designs, stuff that no one else has done, I revert to this one. But anyway, folks, that is it for this episode of Community Steel, celebrating technically 49 episodes of Community Steel, but this is the 50th episode celebration, if you will, of Community Steel. But anyway, folks, hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful day.